At Carlsbad Caverns National Park, you can come to the Bat Amphitheater if you're here just before sunrise, early in the morning. You can hear the bats flying back into the cave.
Or a more reasonable option for us night owls is to come at sunset and watch thousands of bats leave the cave and go out for their nightly meal.
We are outside the natural entrance to the main caves at Carlsbad Caverns National Park, where we discovered something today, and that is we have to start classifying favorite national parks by whether they are above ground or below ground.
At one point on our tour this afternoon, we almost said the exact same thing at the same time, which was, I think this is my favorite below ground park. We've been to quite a few of the cave systems, Mammoth Cave, Lehman Caves, and Carlsbad Caverns, and I think a couple others actually that have had cave systems. And at least so far, this one surely tops the others that we have visited. There's just so many different formations, so many things to see, and it was quite fabulous.
Carlsbad Caverns National Park is just outside of Carlsbad, New Mexico, and that's actually where we're staying. There's the Carlsbad RV Park and Campground, I think it's called. It's a nice little park. It's maybe within a half hour's drive from here, and it was an easy drive this morning. We headed over. So if you're interested in finding a place to stay nearby, I'd recommend checking that one out.
You can also stay in White City, which is just outside of Carlsbad, but there's really not a whole lot there. So most of your RV parks, your motels, your lodging is probably going to be in Carlsbad. But yeah, it's a quick, easy drive. It gets you both to Carlsbad, it gets you to Guadalupe Mountains, and it gets you to Roswell and some other places around here. But the whole reason we were here was to come to Carlsbad Caverns National Park. And it was amazing. It was just, we spent the whole day underground in 3 different cave areas, and it was just spectacular.
This is a busier park, so you are starting to get into a situation where you don't have to reservation to get into the park, but if you want to go into the caverns, which is the whole point of being here, whether you want to do the self-guided tour, you have to reserve tickets. If you want to do any of the special guided tours with the rangers, you have to get tickets. And we ended up getting the big room, the main tour ticket.
Right. Well, you're reserving a timed entry. That's what you're reserving, a time to get into the park so that they can spread it out throughout the day.
Yes. And then we were able to do that. We got one for the morning, and we ended up doing an afternoon guided tour. We did King's Palace, was the one that we were able to get. We tried to get Lower Cave, which is another one they're offering right now, but it's literally 36 tickets a week.
Yeah.
And we just couldn't get that one. So maybe someday we'll come back and try that. But King's Palace was really neat because you get to go in areas that you don't see when you're doing the self-guided tour. So that's definitely one that's worthwhile doing, trying to reserve the tickets and paying a little extra to go down there and see that.
One thing to note, because we did not figure this out until we got here, and I feel like the website it's not misleading, but it just doesn't have enough information. So there are 2 ways to get into the main part of Carlsbad Caverns. There's walking in the natural entrance behind us, which is about a mile and a half climb down. You're going from basically the height of the Empire State Building. So you're starting at the top and you're walking all the way down to the bottom. And then once you get there, you open up into the big room. And that takes about an hour and a half, depending on how fast or slow you want to, explore and take your time. Then you get down and you're down underground and you're in the big room. And that trail is about a mile to a mile and a half because there's a couple shortcuts. And it also can take you an hour to an hour and a half or so, depending on how fast or slow you walk. We didn't really understand that there were 2 different trails to do that. And so we both thought that it was going to be an hour and a half for this trip. We didn't realize it was an hour and a half plus an hour and a half. And then our other cave tour. So you have to kind of note that you need to plan about 60 to 90 minutes per section if you want to do all of that. So just time it accordingly, depending on when you're getting your reservations and when you're getting if you're doing any of the self-guided versus the ranger tours. And note, there is an elevator. So if you cannot walk that mile and a half steep down, there is an elevator that you can take. And this is one of the few trail systems that I have seen that are wheelchair accessible. Not the whole thing, but a good portion of it is. And I did see at least one gentleman in a powered wheelchair down there today. And I think that's fabulous because there are very few cave systems that are handicap wheelchair accessible. And so I think that's really great that they've been able to manage that here.
depending on the time you have available and how much you want to walk up and down hills, you can come back out the natural entrance too, or you can go in through the natural entrance and take the elevators out. So there's a lot of different ways to do a combination trip if that's what you want to do and see the different areas. But yeah, there's very distinct areas with the big room. There's the King's Palace. There's a natural entrance. And everywhere you go, we just kept saying, wow, and oh my gosh, and I can't believe this. And isn't that beautiful? And so I think this is why Carlsbad Caverns is now our favorite underground national park.
Wow seems to be a favorite word because it just encompasses so much. I mean, I could come up with some more thesaurus-worthy words, but wow seems to encompass all of it. And the big room here is named such because it is the biggest single room chamber in North America, I believe. It's like the 22nd in the world, but here. And so if you've been to Mammoth Cave at all, and Mammoth Cave is not mammoth because of the bigness of the room, but of the length of the cave system. Here, it truly is the size of the room, and it is 6 foot. What is it, 6?
They said you could fit 6 American football fields in the big room, and you'd still have plenty of room to spare.
Yeah, it's ginormous, and it is long, and it kind of comes and goes, and you're walking along, but it is one giant room with all sorts of stalagmites and stalactites and popcorn and soda straws and bacon and draperies and you name it, they've got it in this cave, and it was just amazing to spend like pretty much all day underground walking through it.
Yeah, and what I liked is because it's a self-guided tour, you can take your time. You can stop and do pictures. You can read the signs. You can go faster or slower, however you want. And you'll see all the different formations that you're going to see, even on the guided tours. It's not like they reserve those for the guided tours. You see everything in the big room. I mentioned we did the King's Palace tour. What's different about that is you're seeing, I think, a lot more of the features in a compact space, a little bit more. So you feel much closer to them.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's really overwhelming almost when you get in there and you realize how much is around you. It's really kind of cool.
The King's Palace used to be part of the self-guided tour, but they said they had too many problems with humans damaging it, partly because of that closeness, because you are much, in a tighter area. Whereas in the big room, the way they have the trails and the railings, you keep pretty far away from the actual formations. So I can see why they've had to close that down now because they needed to protect it. And when you go on the guided ranger one, they will shut the lights off at some point. And so that's really cool that you are down there in complete darkness. It's super quiet because there's no sound unless people are like coughing. And you get a real sense of what the first cavers would have experienced when they went in there. And also he said, up until Jimmy White discovered it in the early 1900s, I mean, it had never seen light, ever. I mean, for millions of years, this cave had never seen light. So it's just kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah, there is evidence of Native Americans being outside of the natural entrance. There's petroglyphs, and they found where they had some cooking stations. But the natural entrance, you'll see it as you go down through the wiggles that they've put in now to help you get down there. Past that last turn before you go to what they've constructed as a regular entrance now, it drops.
Yeah, it's like a 30-foot drop.
At least a 30-foot drop. So they said nobody had ever really been in the cave. There's no evidence of it. Jim White, who was a 16-year-old working as a cowboy, happened to see millions of bats flying out. He said at first he thought it was smoke. That's what they said in the story. And he went over to investigate, realized it was bats. They were that thick. And he said, well, they must be in a big cave if there's that many bats. And he ended up going in and exploring it over time with a candle to start with, and then a kerosene lantern. It's just amazing to me that these guys wandered into these caves like this with very little light.
He had no idea what he was getting into. And he ended up becoming a park ranger ultimately, or a park guide, I guess. His sole goal after he discovered it then was to show it off to the world. So he worked to protect it. He worked to bring people in, give tours. When it became a national monument and then a national park, he did continue working with the National Park Service to show it off. So that was really cool. Carlsbad Caverns is home to a colony of bats. It's home to cave crickets, cave spiders, and swallows. I can't remember what species they are, but you
can swallows.
Are they just cave swallows?
Cave swallows.
You might see them or hear them flying around behind us, and they share turns with the bats. So they take the day shift, the bat takes the night shift, they eat the insects, and they all live in the cave. And then at night, about dawn, during the summertime, all of the bats migrate out to go eat. And apparently,
at dusk.
What did I say?
At dawn.
Oh. All right, the swallows come out at dawn and then they go sleep for the night, and the bats come out at dusk. And you can sit here in this amphitheater and watch all the bats come out and go and get their insects and feed. And apparently come like July or August after they've had their babies, it's just spectacular, I guess. I wish we could be here for that, because there's just like thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of bats that are coming out. Early in the year here, where we're here in May, it's just the moms and there's not as many of them. But I guess later towards the summer, you get just, it's quite a sight from the pictures we've seen.
The rangers told us if you're an early riser, the park's open. You can get down here 24/7. You can't get into the cave. But if you wanted to come in just before sunrise, then you would hear the bats coming back. And it's not so much in a big group. He said they kind of come back as they're full.
Yeah.
But the one ranger said they go diving into the cave, and it's almost like hearing bullets
Yeah.
going into the cave as they come in. So that might be kind of neat to experience that as well.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to get to do that. We've talked about it. Well, we'll see. But I don't know. Right now, I think it sounds like there's not enough of them this time of year that you'd really get the experience of it.
But I think in the summer.
In the summer, for sure. If you had that opportunity, I'd love to hear if somebody's ever done that, because I think that would be really neat. We have seen bats come out in Texas at one of the state parks in Texas, but I've never seen them come back. So yeah, that could be cool.
We said, this is like our new favorite underground park. There's stuff above ground. Obviously, you've got the bats. You can watch the amphitheater. It's 47,000 acres in this national park. Has been preserved, and there's mountains here. It's all part of the Guadalupe mountain range, so you can do some driving around and see things. There's exhibits to see stuff. There are some hiking trails here that we just haven't had a chance to do, but I think this is another national park I've always heard about and never really known what was here, and now I'm so glad we got to do this. And hey, if you get a chance, get to New Mexico, check out Carlsbad Caverns National Park. In the meantime, keep on trekking,
and we'll see you out there.
And the first thing to do at any national park is to get your junior ranger book.
Or in this case at Carlsbad, your senior ranger book for those of us 18 and older. But they did say that you also get you get a special adult ranger badge and a junior ranger badge when you complete it. This is the best part of the national park. Quite frankly, it really is, because you end up learning a lot more than you might have otherwise, because it forces you to read the signs, complete the activities, and actually learn something about the park you're at more than what you might just see by driving around or even hiking a trail. So always encourage you to stop at the Information Center and get your junior or senior ranger booklet.
I promise. As a senior ranger,
I
will do my very best.
will do my very best
To be kind,
considerate,
and share my knowledge. With others. Congratulations. Here is your book bag. Your very the junior ranger badge and the even cooler, most awesome senior ranger.
That's awesome. Thank you.
You guys are